And away we go. Monday edition of the show, all across America on SportsMap Radio. We are worldwide on the SportsMap Radio app. Good to have you with us. Start of another week. Holiday week. Next 2 weeks, we're in holiday mode, which means we're not with you on Fridays. We were off last Friday as well. I was just saying to my significant other, my SO, that it is it's challenging to do a show after 3 days off. There's a reason you host for 5 days a week, and the reason is you get into a flow, you get into a rhythm, you got a pace to it, and it's hard to keep your pace when you take a day off, but you have to at holiday time. There's just too much going on to possibly keep up with. So we're off on Fridays for the duration of this year. So next Friday, no show. But other than that, we are with you going right up through the Super Bowl. So, I mean, we'll be on beyond that. But I mean, in terms of not taking any time off, we're with you. Austin Rodriguez is our intrepid engineer producer working the show back in Houston tonight. Good to have you with us. As I said, we are monitoring Monday Night Football, which is going the way of the Green Bay Packers right now, who lead the Rams 17-6. Got a touchdown from A.J. Dillon just a few moments ago and kind of in control. 17-6 kind of feels like 24-6 with the way this Rams offense is performing. Look, this wasn't an offense that was performing all that well when Matthew Stafford was healthy. It sure as heck isn't going to perform well with Baker Mayfield right now as he tries to adjust and still acclimate himself to this offense. And not to mention the fact they're playing on a night where it's like 16 degrees at Lambeau Field, and with the wind chill, it's about 9. I just asked Google, my Google Home, to tell me how cold it was. She said it was 9. It felt like 9 degrees in Lambeau Field. Aaron Rodgers' face looks frozen, and it's not from the mushrooms or the ayahuasca. All right, breaking down the best of Week 15 in the NFL, and I use that word for a reason. Next on The Cash In on SportsMap Radio. Everybody talking to you. Packers on the march looking for more. Up 17-6, entering the red zone as they try to put the death punch into the Los Angeles Rams. Good to have you with us on the Cash In on this Monday night. I got a lot to talk about tonight. It's one of those nights where if we went guest-free for 3 hours, I'd probably still not have enough time to talk about everything that I want to talk about, but we'll spread it out. Kurt Heelan will join us, Pro Basketball Talk at NBCSports.com. You can find him on Twitter at Basketball Talk. We'll talk with Kurt coming up about 28 minutes from now on all things NBA. And there is a lot of all things NBA to talk about right now. So Kurt will join us coming up about 28 minutes from now. Look forward to chatting with him. We'll get into the live betting aspect of this game, but honestly, I just don't feel like there's a lot to talk about. It's a game between two teams that are going nowhere. I know people will say, well, if the Packers win out. Yeah, okay. The Rams obviously are going nowhere, even if they were to win out. Live betting on this game right now is Rams plus 18.5, by the way. We are the Cash In, and we love to talk about sports betting on the show. So we'll tell you that the Rams are plus 18.5 right now on the live betting. 39.5 is the total in a 17-6 game with 3:32 to go in the third quarter. Packers, like I said, basically trying to salt this game away because right now they're on the Rams' 7-yard line. With that first and goal I was talking about. So let's have a conversation, if we can, about sort of where we are in this NFL season now through 15 weeks. And look, there's a lot of noise and a lot of crazy stuff that happened this weekend. But let's cut through some of that and just talk about it from the perspective of the teams that matter. Okay? Talk about it from the perspective of the teams that could certainly make the deepest run in this postseason. Let's talk about it from the perspective of, Super Bowl contenders, if you will. And if you talk about it from that perspective, I think it's a little easier because it's so easy with all the chaos this weekend. And there were a lot of great games to get into. With all of that, you could sometimes, not see the forest through the trees, if you know what I mean. And I think it's important to kind of keep you focused and keep your eye on the prize. So let's start with Buffalo, okay? The Bills go to 11-3. They get a hard-fought win at home against Miami. Take nothing away from the Dolphins, who for a couple of weeks, that offense started to look pretty haggard. And then this weekend, it looked pretty good against Buffalo in a tough spot on the road. Weather played a factor late in this game. Here's what I'll say about the Bills and Dolphins. Give me that matchup in the postseason. I don't know how it winds up happening. I don't know what, machinations need to happen because the Dolphins still have to, play their way into the postseason as a wild card, which I think they will. I feel pretty safe with this team at 8-6. Home against the Packers next week, that's a win. At the Patriots, where they'll be a favorite, and home against the Jets. They will be a favorite in all three of those games. Win one, you're probably in. Win two, you're definitely in with 10 wins. So right now, as far as I'm concerned, Dolphins are probably going to be a playoff team. Love to see them play against Buffalo, who clinched themselves a playoff berth with the victory this weekend. But feeling pretty good about where both of those teams are right now as we get ready for the postseason. God, I could watch Josh Allen sling it around all day. That team is so much fun to watch. He had a big run in that game late to set up the game-winning field goal where they were wiping away snow from the field. But the Dolphins acquitted themselves nicely. And, you look at Miami. They had a couple of games where things looked a little sluggish offensively. That offense got back on track in the game against Buffalo. They have lost 3 in a row. I get that. But I still think that game yesterday, there were a lot of positives to take away if you're Mike McDaniel and company. So Good win for Buffalo, but nothing to hang your heads too badly about if you are Miami. Cincinnati is the team that's sort of sneaking up on everybody right now. They've won 6 in a row. And it's not often that a team that leads a division by a game through 15 weeks of the NFL season and a team that's won 6 in a row could sneak up on people. But with all the noise around the league about teams like Kansas City, some of the other craziness from the weekend, you could easily miss the fact that Cincinnati is probably playing the best football all 3 phases of the game of any team in the league. You look at point differential, you look at who they've beaten over the last 6 games, and you start to get the feeling that Cincinnati is peaking at the right time. And if they continue to play at this level, I think they are right there when you talk about Buffalo, Kansas City, and now obviously Cincinnati. I think those are the 3 teams you have to feel good about. They looked sluggish in the first half yesterday on the road in Tampa Bay before realizing at the half, we need to actually play a little better on the road in the NFL against Tom Brady and company. And say this, and I know I only want to focus on the good teams here. Tom Brady, that was not a good performance yesterday. 4 turnovers. And again, you just wonder what's going on in his mind as he tries to calculate what goes on beyond this year. There'll be plenty of time to talk about that throughout the week, I'm sure, especially when he talks a little more in the media and some of the press conferences that go on throughout the week, his podcast, all of that. I'll be interested to see what Tom Brady has to say after a really rough week. I mean, I don't think – has he ever had 4 turnovers in a game? I thought I heard yesterday that he had not ever had 4 turnovers in a game. 2 fumbles, 2 interceptions. Anyway, Cincinnati wins. The Ravens right now, look, they're scuffling because they're playing without their starting quarterback. They're just trying to figure out a way to get to the finish line and get into the postseason as a wild card team. And honestly, when you look at the schedule for them at 9-5, it would take a lot for them not to make the playoffs. I mean, they're home for the Falcons, home for the Steelers. This should still be an 11-win team. And you get the sense that Lamar Jackson will probably be back for the team's next game, which, as we said, on Christmas Eve against the Falcons. So you would think they'll have Lamar Jackson back for that game. And, you're talking about a Falcons team now starting a rookie quarterback, which pretty much has sunk their hopes of catching the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in that horrific NFC South. So Falcons, Steelers, Bengals, the 3 games that Baltimore finishes with, you're kind of set up for 10 or 11 wins at the most. Baltimore's going to be a playoff team. I don't think there's any question about that at this stage of the season. The Titans, it's kind of hard to figure them out right now. I know they lead their division, and they're fortunate to play in such a bad division, but that lead in the AFC South has really shrunk at this point. And you have to start to wonder, if they're hearing the footsteps a little bit. Ryan Tannehill's banged up, and he's going to play, the team's next game. Like Vrabel says, he's a gamer, and he's going to be out there. And it tells you that they don't think much of Malik Willis at this point, that they've got Ryan Tannehill out there right now, despite the fact that he is nowhere close to 100%. They lose in Los Angeles against the Chargers 17-14. And you start to look, again, what does the rest of the Titans' schedule look like here down the stretch? They only have 1-game lead on the Jacksonville Jaguars right now. And I believe they play each other again in the final game of the season. So they no longer really control their own destiny. If the Jaguars win out, they're going to win the division. And the remaining schedule for Tennessee is home for the Texans, home for the Cowboys, which becomes a really interesting game, and then at the Jaguars. So Tennessee is hanging on by a thread right now. And our buddy Matt Verderam, who does a great job over at Fansided, who before the season said Jacksonville might win that division, if not be a playoff team. Well, he might wind up being right after all. And considering where this Jaguars team has been for a while, that is saying something. And Jacksonville got a good win over Dallas. We'll get to that when we get to the NFC side of things. All right, Kansas City wraps up the AFC West. I think they said this is the 7th or 8th year in a row now for Kansas City winning that division. And that is, I mean, when you think about the modern NFL, I mean, it's hard to be much better than that. You can't be better than that. And Kansas City's 11-3. They've won 2 in a row. They continue to be the class of the conference alongside Buffalo. And those two teams could very well wind up meeting. And look, I mean, you've got 3 really good teams right now in the AFC. And don't count out the Chargers, who I just mentioned, who got that victory over the Titans. Who obviously aren't going to win the division, but again, another team that looks like they're bound for the playoffs. Right now, when you talk about the playoffs in the AFC, you're talking about the Dolphins, you're talking about the Ravens, and then you're looking at the Chargers, with the Patriots and Jets sort of leering from, outside the house, looking through the window saying, can we come in? And it would take a miracle for the Raiders to get in. The loss they suffered a couple of weeks ago crippled them, despite what happened against the Patriots, who had a crippling loss of their own. We'll get into all of that again. That's the noise. I just want to talk about the teams that really matter. So we went through the AFC side of things, and that's where we are. And again, I want to focus on the best of the best, the teams that actually have a chance to win something this year. It's all great to talk about what happened with that Raiders game and the Patriots and the crazy comeback with Indianapolis and Minnesota. And there's plenty of great stories. But I just, for the sake of the top of the show, want to talk about the top of the league. We'll do it on the NFC side as we continue. I'm Jason Page. Hey, we got a phone number. You want to be a part of the show? Anytime. 1-800-224-2004. 800-224-2004. You can hit me up on Twitter at any time throughout the show. I am at the back page. We continue with the Cash In on SportsMap Radio. So, Austin, for the sake of the podcast, the segment we just did and this upcoming segment, obviously, we'll go in. Okay. Then the interview, and then I've got something I'm going to do in the next hour that I really like for the podcast as well. Bum, ba, bum, ba, bum. So the Packers scored a touchdown since I last updated you on the game, and so did the Rams. Came right back down the field and put one in of their own, their first touchdown of the night. Rams trail the Packers 24-12. I think they missed on the 2-point conversion, but I'm not sure. I think so. So Packers lead the Rams 24-12, 22 seconds to go third quarter, so the Rams still hanging around. I mean, they hadn't been able to put it in the end zone all night, so at least giving themselves a fighting chance in the fourth quarter. Live betting on this game right now. It is Rams plus 14.5. The total is 45.5. And the live money line bet is the Rams plus 1,700. You know how I feel about value bets. This would not be one I would consider, though. Although after the Rams come back a couple of weeks ago, or just a week ago, in fact, a week and a half ago, you just never know. The Rams plus 14.5 is the thing I would probably be leaning towards. Matter of fact, let's lock that in. How about the Rams plus 14.5 on the live spread? Because now they've gotten a touchdown in this game. They've sort of broken the ice, literally and figuratively, when you consider how cold it is right now at Lambeau Field. Then I'm going to go with the Rams plus 14.5, our live bet of the night. We'll continue to watch it throughout the fourth quarter of this game. Because at this point, with this kind of lead, you think the Packers might get a little more conservative offensively? And the Rams, even if the Packers tack on a field goal, you get the Rams a garbage touchdown late. Team start to play to the scoreboard at this point in the game. So plus 14.5 on the Rams. That is our live bet. It actually just went up to plus 15.5 before the kickoff. So let's get it at that number. Let's get it at plus 15.5 at this point. Plus 15.5 on the Rams. We'll keep that in mind as we continue to roll through. We'll talk to our good friend Kurt Healing coming up in 10 minutes. Pro Basketball Talk at NBCSports.com. He's a regular on this program, and we love getting his thoughts on all things NBA. So we'll talk with Kurt. Great kick return by the Packers. Sets them up 1st and 10 on the Rams 48. So all sorts of points now being scored in this game after it being a relatively low-scoring affair. All right, let me run through the NFC with you guys real quick here after we went through the AFC. And again, just blocking out the noise from the weekend on the best of the best. Philadelphia continues to win games. Doesn't have to be pretty. It doesn't have to be great. But now they're going to be without Jalen Hurts potentially for this showdown against the Cowboys this week because Hurts has a sprained shoulder. And as much as I want to see what the Cowboys can do against a healthy Eagles team, it's not a healthy Eagles team. We saw the first time they played, the Cowboys had Cooper Rush at quarterback. Now we might see Gardner Minshew at quarterback for the Eagles in the second matchup between these two teams. So we still have no real idea how to view a potential postseason matchup between the Eagles and the Cowboys if it does turn out that Hurts sits out this week. And if you are the Eagles, you have no reason to risk this. I know you could say Minnesota and competing for the best record in the conference, and I appreciate all that, but Jalen Hurts is your moneymaker right now for this franchise, and you cannot chance it. If there is any risk involved, Jalen Hurts has to sit against the Dallas Cowboys. I know the folks on TV will not like it because they really want to see these two teams square off with both of their full squads on the team. But the Eagles don't owe that to anybody. They have earned it to this point in the season to be where they are, that if they want to sit him for this game, they can and they should. So they get a win against the Bears yesterday, which obviously keeps them in a good position as we continue to move through the remainder of this season. So a win there. And look, I mean, the Bears are what they are. You're kind of tanking at this point. Go and get yourself a really good receiver potentially when it comes to the draft. If you feel that Justin Fields is still your quarterback, and I think they feel like he's turned a corner, and they are in a position now where they can feel like Justin Fields is their quarterback. Okay, the Vikings. Now, it goes without saying here All right. I'll go back to the Cowboys because I'll stay in the NFC East for a second because there are four teams there right now that are all in the playoffs if the playoffs start today. So let me go to the Cowboys. They lose on the road yesterday in Jacksonville. It is not as bad a loss as you think it is. Jacksonville has been very up and down this year, but much more on the upside lately. And when you look at their record at 6-8, you might think they're not a good football team. But then when you look at the point differential, you suddenly start to realize they're a lot better than you think they are. And I'm going to give you some numbers in the next hour of the show that are going to blow your mind as it relates to how good some of these teams actually are. Numbers that will just, rock your world. That's coming up in the next hour of the show. We'll do that about a little over an hour from now. I went and did some hard research today because there was something I wanted to get to the bottom of as it relates to the league. And something that gives you a little bit of a barometer of where some of these teams are and how good they actually are. So the Cowboys lose yesterday on the road. You have the interception late by Dak. I don't blame him. The receiver dropped the football, and it bounced into the hands of a Jaguars defender who runs it in for the touchdown. The Giants winning last night on the road in Washington is not a surprise to me because Daniel Jones has always played well in Washington. And he didn't light up the town. He didn't put up any insane numbers. But the Giants, in that spot, looked pretty good. It's a big win for them. It's a bad loss for the Commanders, but it doesn't cripple them because of that tie they had with the Giants. They still remain in the final playoff spot. And through 15 weeks of the NFL season, all four teams in the NFC East right now are going to the playoffs. And your wild card teams are right there. That may not remain the case, though. And I'll explain why in a minute. Minnesota, it goes without saying, just a bonkers win at home against Indianapolis. I'll get more into that a little later in the show, so I don't want to spend too much time on the Vikings. You all know where I stand on them by now. I think they're frauds. And I don't think what happened on Saturday helps that cause at all, despite the fact that they won. But I'll come back to that later in the show. Detroit continues to be the story. They've won 6 of 7 after a 1-6 start, and here they are right now, basically, again, leering through the window at the outside of the playoff picture alongside Seattle. They're kind of peeking in saying, okay, how can we get in? How they get in is dependent on what the Commanders do now over the final 3 weeks of the season. And the way it breaks down for Washington is this. They're at the 49ers next week. That is a loss. They're home for the Browns the week after that. That's kind of a toss-up game. Cleveland has played tough this year, and I think if you put them on a field with Washington, it's probably a slight favorite for Washington, but not much. It's pretty close to a pick-em game. And then the final week of the season, the Cowboys. So right now, you're talking about a Commanders team that could still at 7-6-1, that could very well wind up under 500. It's hard to imagine them getting in the playoffs in that scenario if they lose 2 of their last 3. If they win 2 of their last 3, I think they get in. But still, a lot of work to be done for Washington. As it relates to Detroit, the Lions, and what they have left, I think they have one of the more favorable schedules left when you talk about where we are in the race for the postseason. Detroit right now has the Panthers. Play team's tough, but Detroit's going to probably be a favorite in that game. Home for the Bears and at the Packers. So that's what you got for the final 3 games. Those are winnable games for Detroit. Although I think Aaron Rodgers would take great joy in eliminating Detroit from any postseason contention. We're back with Kurt Heelan on the show next. I got to do this. Damn it. Let me know when we got a minute left. Thank you. Thank you. We roll along on this Monday edition of the show. Take a little detour from all the NFL talk to talk about one of my favorite things to talk about, and that is the NBA. Well, when I'm not talking about the World Cup, of course, or the NHL. I'm kidding. Good to catch up with our good friend Kurt Heelan, Pro Basketball Talk at NBCSports.com. A friend of the program, just a friend in life. He joins us on the show tonight. So, let's call a spade here. We kind of, when I asked you about the Knicks before the season started, you sort of laughed at the idea of this, being a playoff team and what could they do. And here they are, the hottest team in the NBA. I'll be damned, because they looked like basically a 500 team through the first 20 games of the season. And now all of a sudden they've seemingly put it all together. What's going on?
They've started to play defense. They played really good defense, and they were, by the way, horrible at it early on. But I don't know. Tom Thibodeau's good at coaching defense. His teams tend to get better at it over the course of a season. Not in Minnesota, but like everywhere else. And I think that's just started to happen here. They've started to play much better on that end of the floor, and there's also the personnel moves, which obviously got a lot of play because, look, Derrick Rose out of the rotation. They're trying to trade. At some point, they're going to have to play Evan Fournier if they want to trade him. Like, you're going to have to showcase him a little. But like the guys the front office brought in as free agents are kind of out of the picture, and they're getting replaced by the guys they drafted. Quentin Grimes is getting time. Right. Those are the guys stepping up and making plays. Quentin Grimes and Jalen Brunson form a nice backcourt, like a nice, solid, quality backcourt. And they've just kind of played up to that level. They've been good in a conference where, outside of Boston, Milwaukee, nobody's really run away, right? Like it's a little tight. You can kind of move up and down in there outside of those two, and they've played really well lately. Like you said, now as of this morning, they are top 6. Good for them.
Everybody. If you look at the top 6 in that conference outside of Boston that just lost 2 games in a row to Orlando, who's my sort of little pet team that I love to watch because they're so young and so athletic, and a bowl just I go wild every time I get to watch a bowl highlight. But you look at the top 6 in the East right now. Bucks have won their last 2. Cleveland's won their last 4. The Nets have won 6 in a row, 9 of their last 10. The 76ers have won 5 in a row. I mean, the top of that conference right now is really playing well.
They've started to put it together, and I think that how well Boston and Milwaukee played early on and continue to. I mean, like I said, Boston's had a couple losses, but I don't think we're worried about them. Put some pressure on teams to start getting better, but in the case of Brooklyn, they hit a soft spot in the schedule, but they also got healthy. They got Kyrie back from his suspension. They got Joe Harris kind of healthy and playing. Nick Claxton's been solid for them. Like everybody kind of got right. It's sort of that way with figuring out what they wanted to do with the rotations in New York. Philadelphia has gotten healthy, although they don't have Maxey back, but they were without 2/3 of their big three for a while. Everything's starting to come together, and the conference looks, the conference looks deeper and tougher in the top six, certainly, than out west, where nobody's running away with anything.
No, they certainly are not. Talking with Kurt Heelan, Pro Basketball Talk at NBCSports.com. And I know they're not making the playoffs. I guess theoretically they're only 3 games out of a spot in the play-in. But Orlando's starting to play a little bit better right now. That team seems like it is starting to mesh a little bit, doesn't it?
It does. It'll be interesting to see what they do at the trade deadline with some of their veterans. This might be one of those situations where they're not as eager to win as suddenly some of those players. Vancaro can play. Franz Wagner can play, man. Like you said, Bol's been. Look, you can't. You're not sliding him into the starting lineup and expecting him to just shut down Giannis, but guy can make some plays, right? Like he is, especially against the second unit. He's a lot of fun. They're kind of entertaining, and I was at the Lakers-Wizards game where the Lakers won, beat the Wizards in that was not the prettiest basketball game we've ever seen.
Crazy ending to that game.
Yeah. The Wizards' crunch time defense gave up, like the last 2 Laker buckets were uncontested dunks, which is, kind of what you want to do right down the court. But they, it was a close game, and I think Darvin Ham made a good point, which is even the bad teams in the league have generally gotten a little smarter than maybe they were, and they're playing their young guys, and there's a little more depth of talent in the league. And suddenly, you don't get a night off against Orlando anymore, because if you do, Vancaro and Wagner and Cole Anthony and whoever else is hot that night will just put up numbers. And if you think you're just going to coast against Houston, Jalen Green and Martin are going to go out and put up numbers. Like, there's talent everywhere, and you just can't take a night off in the NBA the way I think you used to. You can still get some wins resting guys, but it's not as easy as it was. There's not, you can't just look down the schedule and go, "Oh, we got that one." I'm glad
you mentioned the nights off thing, because somebody might have been Alan Hahn. I can't remember. It was one of these basketball guys that mentioned this the other night. The Knicks, when it comes to their big 3, Randall, Brunson, RJ, not one game have those guys sat out for rest. Not one. And when you look around a league where guys are sitting there, players and can't play people on the back end of back-to-backs and all of that stuff is great. The Knicks, who have won 7 in a row and are starting to sort of excel here, are an example of why maybe you don't do that.
And also, look, it's one thing if you're thinking, and the Lakers ran the JV team out tonight and they're getting crushed. If you're right, you might want to give almost 38-year-old LeBron James the second night of a back-to-back off. Like there's sometimes there's spots for it. Guys coming off injuries, I get it, but I think that 2 things. A, like you said, the teams that don't, the teams that come out and like the Knicks, and hey, we're bringing everybody, and we're going to play hard every night, and we're just not going to be easy to play against. You pick up some wins. The other part of this, and I think it's the bigger concern for the league long term, is regular season. What you're selling isn't that when everybody's resting, and you're like, hey man, because we got to have Kawhi Leonard right for the playoffs, and we'll worry about the rest of it later. What you're telling your fans is, and what you're telling the fans around the league is, regular season doesn't matter.
No premium on the Kurt. I went nuts. I went nuts on it last week, and I'm not normally this guy that will spend a segment on this sort of thing, but my God, you had the Clippers last week against the Suns, and you've got the Clippers with no Paul George, no Kawhi Leonard, and no chance of competing against the Suns at home. I don't know how much ticket prices are for the Clippers versus the Lakers, but I'm sure it's not cheap. And fans are paying to watch this. It's just not a sustainable model if you're this league. You cannot keep doing this.
And you get it a lot on the road too. The league weirdly would prefer you rest your guys at home, but hey man, the Miami Heat are coming into town. I'm not, unless I'm from Miami, I'm not necessarily paying to see the Heat, but you know what? I like to see Jimmy Butler play. I like to see Bam Adebayo play. Well, Bam plays pretty regularly, but Jimmy's one of those guys who gets a lot of nights off. And I kind of, again, I've seen the analytics. I've seen the rest. If the league has to find a way to deal with this, well, I'm just not sure what the answer is.
Shorten the season or lengthen the season and allow more days off in between games so you don't have all these back-to-backs, but you've got to do something.
I ultimately, shortening the season is, I think, the answer. And you're going to have to find a way. And look, it's a money thing. It's a gate thing. But I think as the league grows internationally, it becomes hard to be, hey, man, this is look, those weird 12 o'clock New York Knicks starts or East Coast starts, the Nets get some other teams occasionally do, but the Knicks get a bunch of them. That's for Europe, man. Those weird starts are to get you into other markets with primetime games, right? Like, and if guys are resting, and I don't mean like J.R. Smith, I was out too late resting. I mean, like, genuinely resting. Like, if you're not helping that market either, at some point, look, you're never going to be the NFL or college football, or just football in general, where scarcity wins, right? Like, every game matters because there's so few of them that if the Dolphins lose to the Bills, it changes the standings,
sure.
Right? You're not going to get there. You're not going to go below like 60. But I think if you put together 60 it's a better product. I don't know that you lose that much money over the course of the regular season. And then everybody tunes in for the playoffs anyway. And that's where your TV partners are really making their money. So we'll see. I get what they're trying to, I get this. I get it. I get it's going to be a rough transition, but at some point they're going to have to do something because this is just, I'm with you. Like I've seen the analytics. I get it. I understand why they're doing it. It's just not a good product night tonight when, again, there's injuries like the Lakers tonight. Yeah, there's injuries, but they're also resting Russ and LeBron on the second night of a back-to-back because they just kind of looked at this and said, well, Phoenix is good. We're not going to win that game. Let's get the win at home. We're second night of a back-to-back against a good team. Let's get the win at home. Whatever happens in the second game happens. And that happens a lot.
All right, let's talk about the Warriors. Kurt Heelan, Pro Basketball Talk at NBCSports.com. Am I being, I'm not hyperventilating here if I'm a Warriors fan, but they're 15-16. They're at least going to be without Stephen Curry for a couple more weeks at the least. In the middle of a tough, long road trip, they're at the Knicks on Tuesday. Are we talking about a scenario here where, and they weren't playing great when they were all healthy on the floor anyway, no Wiggins. Are we talking about a scenario right now where the Warriors might miss the playoffs altogether?
No, I don't. They will get it together more than that before then. They're capable of it. There's a combination. Now the Curry injury doesn't help, but there has been, and they struggled early in the season, just kind of getting the rotation settled. James Wiseman and Moses Moody didn't step up like they hoped. Even Kuminga, I think they were hoping for a bigger role. He's kind of settled into one, but it's not necessarily the role they hoped. It took them a while to find their rotations. Now they've got the injuries. I think they'll be fine. And they're still going to be one of the favorites going into the playoffs. But if you go in, let's say they put it together and they get up to the 4, 5, 6 seed even, they make the playoffs, you've just made your road tougher. Like you have made it more difficult on yourself to fight through than it needed to be. And going on the second year of back-to-back with an old, you went all the way into June with an older team, that can be an issue. Like it absolutely can be. And you don't want to make this more difficult on yourself than you already have. And they've done that. Memphis is probably going to be home for a lot of the playoffs. That's a good young team. And if you're a little bit tired, Memphis gave them a lot of trouble last year. If you talk to Grizzlies people,
if John Morant plays that last game, they probably win the series.
They thought, even maybe more than Boston, that was their toughest matchup. Honestly, just between you and me, since we're just talking here, if I had to pick today, I would probably pick Memphis to come out of the West. Like, I just think they're playing better than everybody. By the way, they get their second best player back soon. It's they're just, I think, in a better place right now. And the Warriors. The Warriors are treating the regular season like champions tend to, but
yeah.
I got a feeling it's going to come back to bite them.
I think the Western Conference playoffs are going to be so much fun. I love New Orleans. If Memphis is your team, I'm watching New Orleans because that's a team that's really starting to put it together, and they're a lot of fun to watch. I'm out of time as always. Kurt Heelan, Pro Basketball Talk at NBCSports.com. Always good to catch up with you, my friend. Have a great week. We'll do it again soon.
You have a great holiday. Take care of yourself.
Same to you, my friend. We'll come back and wrap up the hour next. Punted it. All right, getting set to put the wraps on hour number one. Packers lead the Rams 24-12. We told you to take the Rams at 14.5 and 15.5. We like both of those numbers, and nothing has changed my mind on that being a great pick from earlier in the show. Quite honestly, right now, they're plus 12.5, and I even like them there because the Packers, like I told you, will get conservative offensively, just trying to run clock, get some first downs. And in that scenario, the Rams at plus 12.5 is a great pick right now. I wouldn't touch the total. It's at 39.5. But again, you get these great opportunities in live betting. We told you to take the Rams at 14.5 and 15.5, and They still look really good right now in that regard. Packers have the football 1st and 10 on their own 28. And, they could theoretically keep the football the rest of the game and not score. And you're good at 14.5 and 15.5. And you'll probably be good at 12.5 in all honesty. But we wouldn't get greedy. Don't ever get greedy when you're gambling. Sports handicapping and greed, you take your good hits and then walk off on a high note. It's when you try to get that extra bet in. Bad things can happen and things go sideways. The gambling gods don't like it. All right, another hour of the cash-in is right around the corner. Jeff Saturday's Colts are struggling. Should we be celebrating it? That's next on SportsMap Radio. I actually got a lot of podcast-worthy material tonight, so just be ready. Because this whole next hour is stuff that is pretty solid. Well, our live bet isn't looking very good. Yeesh, that got out of hand quickly. It is officially a sweat bet at 14.5 and 15.5 with the Packers leading the Rams 24-12. See what happens here. Well, the Packers could theoretically take some knees right now. Rams got a timeout left. I wonder if they're just going to run it out here. Ugh. Boy, this is going to be some anxious moments seeing how the Packers play this. Because they've got 3rd and 2 on the Rams 4. Now, if you get a first down here, I mean, there are so many things in play here. I don't remember what the pregame bet was. I'd have to look and see. Let me see what the pregame bet was on this game. Because there are so many things potentially in play here. Oh, 39.5 was the total on this game? Oh, my God, the sweat is real. I mean, if the Packers kick a field goal, the 39.5, if you got it at that number, you'd still be okay. Oh, my goodness. This is total Sweatville. The Rams, and if you have it like I said at 14.5 and 15.5, you could win one and lose one if they kick a field goal here, if they don't get the first down on 3rd and 2 at the Rams 4. Well, these are the moments you live for as a sports bettor. If you're a handicapper, these are those moments. If you were in on the under, we'll keep you posted on what's going on with the Packers and the Rams, a game that is all but wrapped up for Green Bay. And I got to say, they played pretty well tonight. Offense looked a lot sharper and crisper than it has. And you'd like to say there's things to build on. The problem is they got, a couple teams they're going to have to leapfrog even if they win out. They're going to need some help to try and get in the postseason. The fact that they're even still in contention is something of a miracle. Jeff Saturday's failures. Is it something to celebrate? One columnist thinks so. I'll talk about it next on the Cash In on SportsMap Radio. They got a first down at the 1, and now they're going to take a knee, and that 14.5 and 15.5 is a winner. Oh, my God. That is crazy. That's crazy. They're just going to they'll take a bunch of knees at the 1, and that's it. Game over. Thursday. Yeah, something similar did happen now that you mention it, I think. Oh, right. The big run late in the game, the long run, and he got knocked out of bounds. Yes, that would have been a disaster for covers too. Yeah. Yeah, I won on that one. Yeah, I'm on a pretty good run again on live betting. Yeah, I had a rough stretch for a couple of weeks. That's it. Yeah, took the knees. That's it. Game over. Oh, for bettors, if you had the over right now, you're so mad. Let me tell you something. You talk about threading the needle as a sports bettor. The 12 and we told you to take the Rams at 14.5 and 15.5 on the live betting. The Packers had a 3rd and goal from the 4 and a 4th and goal from the 4. They went for it both times, but it wasn't 4th and goal actually. It was 4th and 2. So they could get a first down inside the 2. They get a run to the 1, so you get the first down, and then they run out the clock. Game over. And I mean, wow. That's exhilarating if you are one that listened to our live bet prognostications on the show, because we gave you 2 winners tonight. At 14.5 and 15.5. Wow. It's just bonkers. Wow. And let me tell you, 39.5 was the total for the pregame bet. And who knows? Maybe you got a 39, maybe you got a 39.5. And in that position, you're thinking Packers are going to punch it in and get a touchdown, and you go over 39.5. There are a few upset people right now. There's some bad beat to the way that game ended for some people. Consequential to some. Hour number 2 of the Cash-In is underway. Glad to have you with us on this Monday. The phone number at any point during the show, 1-800-224-2004, 800-224-2004. We are normally guest-free in this hour, and we are tonight. So I got a lot I want to talk about. I got a lot of complaints about you people. I got a lot I want to talk about tonight on the show. In this hour of the program. Coming up in about 10 minutes, we're in a lot of major league markets. You know, we're on in Las Vegas, we're on in Oklahoma City, we're on in Dallas, Houston, San Diego, Pittsburgh, Atlanta. We're on in a lot of major league markets, but we're also on in a lot of smaller towns where college sports is king, where minor league sports is king. And I had an experience last night that reminded me about the importance of minor league sports. I want to talk about that. We'll do that coming up in about 10 minutes or so. We'll also have post-game sound in the next hour from the Packers and Rams. In particular, always want to hear what Aaron Rodgers has to say. And look, he's got some reason to still believe with this Packers team at 6-8, if they theoretically were to win out, 9-8. It might give them a shot at the postseason. They're going to have to beat the Lions. Who knows? That game against the Lions in the final week of the season may still wind up meaning something. So we'll get into all that next hour. But a lot to get into in this hour, including a statistical analysis that I did of the NFL. Because I heard Patrick Mahomes made a comment after the latest win for the Chiefs, which gave them the AFC West title. And I wanted to kind of delve into something he said and just how it really is the most spot-on thing you will hear about the NFL. That's coming up a little later on in the show. But I was reading an interesting column today from a guy who I don't particularly like because he lives in the world of controversy and he writes a lot of clickbaity sort of stuff. But I think he expressed a sentiment that quite a few people are expressing either privately or publicly. And that is the sort of smiling ear to ear at the demise of Jeff Saturday with the Indianapolis Colts. Now, you'll recall he was hired, a month and a half ago after Frank Reich was let go and put into this position. It might have been 2 months ago now. But Jeff Saturday was given the interim head coaching position by the ownership group with the Indianapolis Colts and tasked with trying to turn around a team that at the time still had an outside shot at the AFC South, which has been one of those divisions all year that has been there for the taking if anybody wanted to take it. And it hasn't gone the way that the Colts and their fans probably anticipated. The team's lost 4 in a row. I think they've won 1 game with Jeff Saturday there thus far. It was the first one against the Raiders. And since then, it's been a bit of a, the team's 4-9-1. They're not going anywhere. And there are a lot of people that are celebrating the demise of the Colts under Jeff Saturday. And this particular columnist, who I will not name because I don't want people reading his stuff, because I think he's sort of clickbaity. I think he lives in the world of controversy for the sake of controversy. He once said that Robert Griffin III wasn't black enough. And this is coming from a black columnist, sports columnist. So anyway, this guy got into the glee that he was feeling about Jeff Saturday struggling. And a lot of people are also mad because they think a black candidate should have been hired for that coaching position. And now there's the feeling that Jeff Saturday being the interim head coach is sort of the back door around the Rooney Rule, and that Jeff Saturday will ultimately be the head coach of the Indianapolis Colts, no matter how bad this goes in Indianapolis the rest of the way. I hope that's not the case, but it certainly could happen. The one thing that's going on with Jeff Saturday, though, I wonder if it pumps the brakes on this movement that some people thought might become a trend, and that is former players hopping out of the broadcast booth or out of the ranks of being a high school football coach. The only thing Jeff Saturday's ever coached was high school football. He didn't coach in the collegiate ranks. He wasn't an assistant in the collegiate ranks. He was an assistant in the NFL. He was literally sitting on the set of ESPN, and they could say all they want. Well, he was analyzing game tape. And he's been in touch with ownership throughout, the entire season and sort of serving as an unpaid advisor to the Indianapolis Colts. You could say all that crap you want. It does not mean the same thing as being an assistant or being, a head coach somewhere beyond the level of high school, where you could show up for a day or two and then go back to your job at ESPN. And I'm certainly not a person that's celebrating the demise of Jeff Saturday as it relates to the Indianapolis Colts. And I don't think that's necessarily the right approach to take. I did think it was a bad hire, much like a lot of people did. And I did take a moment to go after Dan Orlovsky this weekend, which I have no problem admitting. And I even like Dan. So I didn't say it in the most negative or angry terms. But I think you have to go after Dan Orlovsky. Because Dan Orlovsky was one of those people that after he won the first game, went crazy going after the media because of the fact that Jeff Saturday got a win in his first game. After winning his first game, Dan Orlovsky immediately went on to Twitter, never a good idea, and said, what a disrespectful, embarrassing, entitled, unproven, inexperienced win by Jeff Saturday. As if to say, see, you in the media, you don't know what you're talking about, even though he's part of that media. You in the media, you don't know what you're talking about. Football people saying that Jeff Saturday shouldn't have been hired. You don't know what you're talking about. It wasn't simply congratulating his friend Jeff Saturday, which is what he tried to come back at me with. No, Dan Orlovsky, he wanted to make a point that we all got it wrong, and he was so very right. Now, we all know part of this. Dan wanted to be an assistant under Jeff Saturday. And if Jeff Saturday succeeds, it means there's going to potentially be an opportunity for Dan Orlovsky inside that Colts organization. Because Dan Orlovsky has made it clear he wants to coach too. But now that Jeff Saturday's struggling, you might have to keep that job at ESPN. Oh, poor you. But to me, for Dan Orlovsky, after I simply said, this is why you don't take victory laps after one game, Dan, and his response, I mean, it really is one of the more comical, intellectually insulting things that somebody can say. You know what Dan Orlovsky's response was? Jason, try being happy for friends. That's a credible thing in life. When nothing in his post after Jeff Saturday's one and only win, nothing in his post about that win for Jeff Saturday was about Jeff Saturday winning. It was about taking shots at those who dared to criticize Jeff Saturday getting that job when he had no right getting it. None whatsoever. And Dan, you're welcome on the show anytime. The invite is there. You want to talk about it? You know where I am. And I've interviewed Dan Orlovsky before anybody says, well, Dan's not going to come on your show. I've interviewed him before. So just shut up. I'm not glad that he's failing. I don't take joy in other people's misery. But everybody told Indianapolis, everybody told this organization, this was not a smart hire. And they did it anyway. And you reap what you sow. And if you're going to go out and take victory laps after the guy gets a win in his first game over the Raiders of all teams, when the Raiders were playing their absolute worst football of the year, well, then you got to be willing to take the slings and arrows that come back at you when the guy can't win since then. And again, maybe it pumps the brakes on this idea of giving jobs to guys who aren't qualified. And where this could play the most interesting role is with Josh McCown. Because the Houston Texans were long thought to be in the mix for Josh McCown. And before hiring Lovie Smith, the thought was they would hire Josh McCown, but then the Rooney Rule stuff came into effect, and they decided to go hire Lovie Smith. And that team's played hard for Lovie Smith every week. I hope he gets to keep the job. As much as I like Josh McCown, and he's a friend, and I've known him for years, Lovie Smith has done an admirable job with that Houston Texans team, despite whatever the win-loss record is, and I'll have something to prove something behind those numbers coming up a little later on in this hour. But I think this pumps the brakes on the movement of, let's just grab guys out of the broadcast booth and put them on the sideline and call them head coaches and see what happens. Doesn't work that way. You can knock the idea of some of these guys getting head coaching jobs that are really young, but they've been coaches within organizations. They've served in some capacity. They know the system. They understand the game. They understand how to interact with players as coaches. Jeff Saturday's a smart guy. Doesn't mean he's going to make a great head coach without any head coaching experience. And one day he might even be a great head coach if he goes and gets some experience. 1-800-224-2004, 800-224-2004. From anywhere in America, feel free to hit us up this hour of the Cash-In. It's on SportsMap Radio. Stay with us. Rolling along on this Monday edition of the show. The telephone number, 800-224-2004, 800-224-2004. On Twitter as well, at the back page. Get on Twitter, at the back page. Coming up in about 11 minutes, I got to talk about, I want to get into a statistical breakdown. And I went and dug through some numbers today because I heard Patrick Mahomes say something, and it kind of struck a chord in me. So I want to get to that coming up in about 11 minutes here on the show. So I'm glad to have you back with us tonight. And I don't typically delve into the world of minor league sports, even though it's where I cut my teeth in broadcasting and in radio and all these different things. I was a bat boy for a AA minor league baseball team when I was 16 years old. 15, 16. Got to be a bat boy for the New Haven Ravens. They were the AA affiliate of the Colorado Rockies. I was the bat boy their first year in New Haven. It was an expansion team for the Rockies at the time, and I just opportunity of a lifetime, one of the greatest summers of my life. I later went and worked for the organization and did some play-by-play and public address really early in my broadcasting career, long time ago. So I've always had a love for minor league sports. And being in Hartford, Connecticut, after the Whalers had departed, long after the Whalers had departed, I was also around the AHL, which the Hartford Wolfpack is there. Connecticut's had the Bridgeport Sound Tigers. A whole bunch of minor league baseball teams over the years have come and gone through Connecticut. Now I live in Palm Springs, California, as some of you may or may not know. And I was reminded again last night about the importance of minor league sports in our communities. And dare I even say, more important to our communities in America is minor league sports than major league sports, because each major league team only has 30 or anywhere between 30 and 32 teams in NHL, NFL, MLB, NBA, MLS, whatever. You've only got that many teams, and they're all generally in the same markets, whereas minor league sports is spread out throughout America, from Maine all the way, to the furthest reaches of the country, in places where major league sports will never be. And for some communities, minor league sports is all they have. Yeah, they might have college and some of those teams might be good. But in terms of professional sports options, minor league sports offers the greatest bang for the buck it always has. And again, I was reminded of this last night. Palm Springs, California is about the size of, New Haven, Connecticut. It's like market 120 or 125 in the media demo. The population grows during the winter months because the Canadians come down here and sort of take up all the rental market and all of that stuff to get out of the snow, even though it's been really cold here lately. And Palm Springs has not had minor league sports since 1993 when the Angels left after playing here for, I think, 7 or 8 years. So there's been no professional sports landscape anywhere in the greater Palm Springs area. Well, that changed last night. It was announced a couple of years back that the Seattle Kraken of the NHL were putting together a bid to put a minor league team in Palm Springs, California. And you think hockey in Palm Springs gets to be 120 there in May and June and July and all that stuff. How are they going to make that work? Well, they have. And they put an arena about 10, 15 minutes outside of Palm Springs in a, sort of desolate area called Thousand Palms. Somewhat desolate, relatively speaking. And they put a 11,000 seat stadium arena, Acrisure Arena. And last night, after playing their first, 25 games on the road, and they're actually one of the best teams in the AHL, interestingly enough, this Seattle Kraken AHL franchise opened up play in their brand new arena. And I went to the game, and I went with some trepidation because I'm like, it's Sunday, I got the NFL on. I could not be happier that I went because it was such a fun experience, and it reminded me of what makes sports so much fun, the entertainment value. And with minor league sports, it has to be about entertainment value because you're not generally seeing guys that are big names yet. They may turn out to be, but they're not at the time you see them. And you're seeing the future of the Seattle Kraken. But here's this brand new arena, and they turn out the lights, and the place is sold out, and there's 10,000 people screaming their brains out. And they're just so happy because here's this new entertainment option that, gives them 40 nights a year in a regular season where they're going to be able to come out and watch professional sports. And again, just a level below the NHL. And the team's really good, and all of that is great. But it reminded me just how important these things are to our communities, how many jobs they give people. You think about all the minor league baseball teams, the NBA G League, the NHL, the AHL, the ECHL, all these different minor leagues, single A, double A, triple A, rookie ball, the Arizona Fall League, on and on and on you can go. And the NFL has had varying leagues of, not minor leagues, but there's been alternate, professional spring leagues and things like that. Arena League, all of this, Major League Lacrosse, all of this stuff that has been around forever. The MLS, there's sort of these under leagues now for MLS, which is, built its own minor league system in the States. These are so important to the fabric of communities around America. And it's important that people support it if you have the means to do so. And last night was a great example of that again. There was about 10,000 people at Acrisure Arena for the Coachella Valley Firebirds' first game in the arena. And I'm sure the numbers might drop off a little bit as games go on and the novelty wears off a little bit, but I think it's got a chance to stick out here. And hopefully it's not the only thing in terms of pro sports that winds up in that arena. Maybe you wind up with a G League team at some point as well. And you draw on new sports fans and you create new fan bases. And it's a lot of fun. But it was a great thing to be at last night. And I'm glad I got to experience it because, again, it reminds you of why minor league sports. As much as we sit here on this show and we will spend 3 hours a night only talking about major league sports and, major college football and all that stuff and major college basketball as the season progresses, it's important to keep in mind that without minor league sports, none of those major league sports really exist. Good to have you with us on a Monday edition of The Cash-In. A statistical analysis of the NFL you won't hear anywhere else today. That's next on SportsMap Radio. 20 minutes till the top of the hour. The Cash In on SportsMap Radio, SportsMap Radio app. Just got a note from one of our, I share a bunch of producers. I don't have a full-time producer engineer on this show. One of our guys is John Belmer, who I love. And John is listening to the show tonight in his car radio. Said hello, said he was listening. Thanks, John. Appreciate that. Glad to have you all as a part of the show. By the way, if you miss anything on the show, make sure to go and check out the Cash In podcast. It's available after the show. We take the best of the show. Some nights it's 30 minutes, some nights it's an hour. Tonight I got a lot that I really wanted to get into it. There's a lot I wanted to get into, so I keep telling our producer engineer tonight, Austin Rodriguez, I want that in the podcast. So the podcast might be a lengthy one tonight because I got a lot that I really wanted to get out there. Sorry, Austin. Just creating more work for you. No, don't post the whole show. I hate when people, I can't stand, it's the laziest thing in the world when people post, here's my whole show. Well, some of your show's not good. Let's be honest. Look, as much as I strive to have 3 great hours of radio, I know there's some segments that are better than others. And podcasters don't want to listen to 3 hours. They want to listen to, 30 minutes to an hour. And some people even believe in doing these sort of micro podcasts that are like 10 minutes. I can't really do that, but some people believe in it. Although I might. I used to do a daily, 5-minute podcast. And I kind of enjoyed it. But it's not for everybody. Again, 1-800-224-2004 is the phone number if you want to weigh in. 800-224-2004. Feel free to hit me up on Twitter as well, at the back page. So we'll do Monday Night Football postgame in the next hour. All the guys are at the podium. We're loading it up. And we'll have it for you in the next hour. We'll hear from Aaron Rodgers and others. So I heard something Patrick Mahomes said, and it really struck a chord with me as I was preparing for the show today. And it's the fact that there's really one absolute truth when you talk about the NFL. And I've had this conversation with people for years on the air and off the air. There is one absolute truth about the NFL, and it's this. The margin between winning and losing is so small. And Patrick Mahomes mentioned that in discussing the latest division title, 7th or 8th in a row, whatever, AFC West title for the Chiefs. And by the way, the common denominator and all that is Andy Reid, future Hall of Fame coach, who finally got his Super Bowl with these Chiefs and Patrick Mahomes, and who knows, might even get one or two more before it's all said and done. But you think about what he says, and it really is, of all the things in the world, it really is one of those few absolute truths. It is rock solid. It's simple, but it's true. That the margin between winning and losing in the NFL is minute. It is so much smaller than you think it is. The difference between 1-win Houston and, 12-win or 13-win Philadelphia, that margin is so much smaller than you think it is. There's not the disparity of talent that you think it is. It's a player here or a player there. It's a play here or a play there. And I'll tell you what I'm talking about. So I started with just going through a few teams. And again, the margin between winning and losing is so small. Keep that in mind as we talk about that in this segment. Games decided by one score or less in the NFL. I went through every team's schedule. All 32 NFL teams. I went through and looked at their games 8 points or less, because now in the NFL, one score or less would be considered 8 points or less because of obviously the advent of the 2-point conversion many years ago. So I went through and did some analysis on this. And what you find is not shocking in that obviously the teams that are really good are teams that have win-loss totals that are very much in line with what they do in games that are decided by one score or less. Give you an example, AFC East. Buffalo is 11-3 on the year. They're 6-3 in games decided by 8 points or less. The Miami Dolphins are 8-6. 8 games by one score or less, they're 5-3. The Patriots, 7-7. What do they do in games decided by one score or less? They're 3-3. The Jets are 7-7. 9 games decided by one score or less. They're 4-5. Now, note in all of that, the least, out of 14 games, the least number of games decided in just the AFC East by one score or less is the Patriots, 6. Now, wait until I get to the AFC West, where Kansas City is 11-3. They've had 9 games decided by one score or less. Their 3 losses were decided by one score or less, which just tells you how close they've been to being really good. But then you start to say, well, they're 11-3. They must be blown to. They've had 9 games decided by 8 points or less. So they've played a lot of close games for a team that's 11-3. The rest of the AFC West, you ready for this? The Chargers, Raiders, and Broncos, all of them have had 11 games each decided by 8 points or less. So these teams are just constantly grinding and playing in these close games. And that could either wear you down or it can build you up. The Broncos this year, 3-8. They've played, again, you think of the Broncos, you think, my God, they're horrible. They're 4-10. They can't do anything offensively. They've been in 11 games decided by 8 points or less. Let's just say that number is, 6-5. The whole season looks different, doesn't it? The Raiders, 11 games decided by one score or less, and we don't need to go too deep here. They're 4-7. They've played 11 of 14 games decided by one score or less. I'm sure a lot of those are, 3 points or less. The Chargers are 8-6. On the right side of 500, okay. 11 games decided by one score or less, they're 6-5. AFC North, 2 teams above 500. Both of them are over 500 in games decided by one score or less. It all lines up, right? The AFC South, Titans, only team at 500, 7-7. Largely described, though, as mediocre. They've played 9 games this year. 8 points or less, they're 5-4. That's the reason they are where they are right now. Because look at Jacksonville at 6-8. And again, here's the difference between them being a playoff team and right now a team chasing a potential playoff team. Jacksonville's 3-6. in games decided by 8 points or less. Played a lot of close games. But here's the kicker. Here's the one that really blows my mind. And maybe this should be the top line of the story when it comes to this. And it's why all year, if you've listened to this show, I have been high on San Francisco. Whether it was Trey Lance as the starting quarterback for a half a minute, whether it was Jimmy Garoppolo, who was the quarterback for a number of games before he went down with a foot injury, or now that it's Brock Purdy at quarterback. While every team in the league has played 6 games decided by 8 points or less, at least 6 games. Anywhere from 6 to 11 games have been decided by 8 points or less. Okay? Every team in the league. This is a mind-blowing number. One team in the league has played just 3 games that have been decided by 8 points or less. San Francisco 49ers. They have only played 3 games that you would consider really close games. 1 score or less. What does that tell you about this team that is 10-4 on the year and has an all-world defense? I'll tell you what it tells me. They're one of the best teams in football. Because they're not, 8 of their 10 wins haven't really been games that were in doubt. And that's a team that went from Trey Lance to Jimmy Garoppolo to Brock Purdy at quarterback. And you're still talking about a team that's only played 3 games decided by 8 points or less, when the next closest team in all of football has played as many as 6 games decided by 8 points or less. San Francisco's, I'm telling you, I don't care if it's Brock Purdy at quarterback. I don't care if it's Brock Lesnar at quarterback. That team is built to win. That is all you need to know about how that franchise is built to win. By the way, best records this season goes without saying. The Philadelphia Eagles are 13-1. They're 6-0 in games decided by 8 points or less. The NFC North's leaders, division winners, the Minnesota Vikings, who I consider the frauds of the NFL, they are 10-0 in close games this year, which we would define as 8 points or less. 10-0, which is crazy when you consider their point differential is +2. They are a team that just defies all statistical logic. But I'll give you another one that jumps off the page. And as much as I don't believe they're winning anything if they get into the postseason, although with the win last night, they certainly are in position to get into the playoffs, the New York Football Giants, at 8-5-1 this year, have played 11 games decided by 8 points or less. The Giants are 8-2-1. It just, I don't get it. I don't know how you square it with what this team is. But the Giants are 8-2-1 in 11 games decided by 8 points or less. And what that tells me is they don't panic in close spots. They don't panic in tight spots. And some of those were come from behind wins in the fourth quarter. But the Giants, it's an interesting number. Again, I can't square it with what I've watched and what they are statistically, which is a team when you look at the point differential, I think they're like -30 or something like that. -25. They don't score a lot of points. Not that they give up a ton, but they don't score a lot of points. It's a very difficult team to figure out. 8-2-1. Buccaneers, what you would expect, NFC South leaders, they're 6-8, 4-4 in games decided by 8 points or less. Every single team in the NFC East, by the way, which is why they're all right now, as of today, in the playoffs. Every single team has an above 500 record in games decided by 8 points or less. It's a fascinating thing to go and look at. And look, I get that some of these, and before anybody gets all crazy about it, I get that some of these, might be a garbage touchdown late that makes it a one-score game, and you have an onside kick that, you could potentially recover and very rarely gets recovered. But still, the overall theme holds. Where you are in one-score games tends to be where you are as a team when you look at the overall landscape. 1-800-224-2004, 800-224-2004. We'll come back and wrap up this hour of the Cash-In next. It's pretty interesting when you think about it, isn't it? Yeah. That number about the Niners, though, shocked me to shit. I could not believe they've only played 3 games out of 14 that are 8 points or less. Like, that's crazy. When the next closest team is 6. And it just goes to tell you. I mean, it really does tell you something. Well, I don't know if I don't think they're under the radar if you know the NFL well, because they're the best defense in the league, and it's not even close. I mean, they've given up 210 points. The next best is the Broncos at 253. No, the Bills have given up 250. Sorry. I think I would not be shocked if it was Bills 49ers in the Super Bowl at all. I did not steal candy. All right, getting ready for the final hour of the show. We'll hear from Aaron Rodgers, Packers-Rams postgame from Monday Night Football. Packers beat the Rams 24-12 to keep their faint playoff hopes alive. Hey, what are you doing right now? What are you doing in February? Would you like to go to the NFL's biggest game in Glendale, Arizona? You know the one I'm talking about. Well, right now what you need to do is go to playfortickets.com and enter the Super Pick 7 contest. That's right. I've been telling you about it all season long. I don't know if you just understand how big a contest this is. Playfortickets.com. It's a free-to-play contest, free to sign up, free to join. It's that easy. There is no catch. Every Sunday of the NFL season, including the playoffs, you got a chance to win, and it couldn't be easier. All you do is go to playfortickets.com, click on the Super Pick 7 contest button, and pick the correct side and totals on Sunday for 7 games. Use that football expertise each week, and you got a chance to win 2 tickets to the NFL's biggest game and put $50,000 of cash in your pocket. Airfare, hotel, it's all included. Go to playfortickets.com right now and sign up for next Sunday's games, and then go make your picks. Playfortickets.com. 21 and over to play. Terms and conditions apply. Another hour, the final hour of a Monday Cash-In is right around the corner on SportsMap Radio and the SportsMap Radio app. Stay with us. What'd you say? Sorry. Yes. I got it. Yep. Thank you. Pixies. I mean, Yeah. Final hour of a Monday/Tuesday edition of the show. Great to have you with us. SportsMap Radio and the SportsMap Radio app. 1-800-224-2004, 800-224-2004. Tweet at the show at the back page. So, look, I mean, the Packers' route to the playoffs is still there, as slim as it may be, at 6-8 on the year now. And they have won two straight. But I mean, the reality is this: they've got 3 games left. At the Dolphins, home for the Vikings, and home for the Lions. Boy, that game against the Lions could wind up being a real big one. But I mean, you're talking about having to win out, because I don't think 8 wins is going to get you in. And even at 9, when you start looking at the NFC playoff picture right now, even at 9, Cowboys and Giants are going to get in. So 9 might be good for a 3rd spot, but then you've got to hope Seattle falls apart, which could very well happen. I mean, Seattle's remaining schedule is at the Chiefs, likely a loss. Home for the Jets, toss up. Although I'll take the Seahawks in that game. And then the Rams to finish the season. And who knows what the Rams look like if those guys have mailed it in. Super Bowl hangover season, no Matthew Stafford. You know, what's left there. So, I mean, you're talking about look, the Packers could win out and still not make the playoffs. And that's the reality. We'll hear Aaron Rodgers' thoughts on this latest win. Post-game, Monday Night Football style. on the Cash In. Good to have you with us on this Monday edition of the show on SportsMap Radio. Stay tuned. Oh, man. Oh, man. Getting... We truck through this Monday edition of the show. 28 minutes from now, our 2 for 1 tonight. Kurt Heelan, Pro Basketball Talk at NBCSports.com. We love talking all things hoops with him. We'll do that coming up a little later on. Packers post-game, after the Packers get a much-needed win to improve to 6-8 on the year. And look, the reality is this is not a team that is likely going to the playoffs, but at least mathematically, they keep themselves alive. They have to win out. But let's see what the Packers are saying post-game about this win tonight. Aaron Rodgers at the podium a short time ago. Let's hear what the Packers quarterback had to say after a 24-12 victory over the Los Angeles Rams.
Do you think there's a belief in there that you guys could actually run this thing out?
I do. Yeah, I do. Now we're going to play three better football teams, but I do, definitely.
What What's changed, Aaron, in the belief part of it, maybe than, 3 weeks ago or whatever it was?
I mean, I don't know. I mean, I think it's just you win a game, vibes are pretty good, and we've just been practicing a little bit better. Energy's been a little bit better. It's hard to put your finger on it. But we played a couple teams we should have beat. So that being said, it's still tough to win in the league, and I said it earlier. I think we can beat anybody. We can also lose to anybody. But when you win a couple in a row, it starts to give you some confidence. Now we're playing against some better football teams down the stretch that we can go to Miami and win.
They played, it looked like a ton of two-shell. I don't know if they ever came out of it. Is that who they are, or do you think Watson had something to do with that?
I think Watson definitely had something to do with it. They put Jalen on him for a decent part of it, but it wasn't like he was singled up. There was a lot of two-shell, surprising. Not a lot of pressure at all. Even on the last drive on hit Romeo for the big gain, it's just surprising coverage. Pre-snap, Nick was down, and I thought he was going to kind of hang in the middle, be an extra box player, and at the snap he just jetted to the half, and Romeo's 10 yards open. A lot of soft coverage. It was basically quick game and run the football.
Say this week you need to score 30 points, but to go on that last 15-play drive and kneel it at the 1-yard line with 24 points, I think
We should have scored 30. Definitely should have scored 30.
we take it though. The way to finish there, at least the way.
Yeah, and we won. So yeah, of course. But it would be nice to get 30.
How bad did you want to see Christian Watson get in the end zone at the end there?
I think we all did. I mean, he called a couple plays for him. So yeah, we were trying to give him another touchdown.
Aaron, you look at Watson, Dobbs, what Zach Tom's doing, Quay Walker showing up tonight, and Igbari. What do you think of this draft class that Brian went in?
Yeah, I mean, they've made some plays for sure. Been a work in progress. Obviously, Kingsley's in there because of Rashawn being hurt. Dobbs and Watson both been hurt throughout the season. But nice getting those guys back. I felt like Romeo was kind of getting his footing there. He had some opportunities maybe for some run after the catch, but the fact that he catches the ball with his hands every time is pretty nice, and so it was nice having him back out there.
How different is it playing these guys without Aaron Donald?
A lot different. Yeah, nobody was upset that AD wasn't playing, for sure. He's a Hall of Fame player. So that being said, I feel like the scheme was almost the exact same as when he's playing. They basically played a lot of two-shell, and they got a good D-line, even without AD. Greg's become a really good player, I think, inside, and he had a nice game. Obviously, Leonard's been, premier pass rusher. I thought he played well tonight. I don't feel like we got our best blocking game in the pass game tonight, but they still got a good D-line, but a lot of two-shell. I felt like we, kind of did what we wanted to do on offense.
What happened on the interception, the throw to Lazard?
I don't know if he didn't quite see the ball. Maybe he was expecting me to stop him with the ball. I came out and was trying to kind of put it on him, but I guess, he thought I was going to stop him with it, so he stopped, and I thought he was going to maybe keep going.
That one late was supposed to be a screen to Christian, I take it?
Basically, yeah.
What's the difference you're seeing in A.J. Dillon these last few weeks? Is it just a matter of his style working well in this weather, or what's kind of the change you've seen?
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot. It's opportunities. It's his style. I mean, he's just a consistent player. I feel like he hasn't really had any lows this season. He's been solid for us throughout the season. Jones, he was a little banged up tonight. But I give him a lot of credit for fighting through it and went back out there after AJ got dinged up. But AJ is a consistent player, so you know what you're going to get every single week from him.
You seem a little subdued.
Do I?
Yeah.
It's late, man. I'm a little tired. It's been a long day. Monday nights, when you're a young player, you dream about playing on Monday nights. When you're an older player, you want those noon games. So it's past my bedtime. I'm ready to go home and go to sleep.
Well, we'll let him go to sleep. There you go. Aaron Rodgers. Following a win for the Packers. And look, They have put themselves in a position where if they win out, it's not over yet. I don't think they're going to win out. If you ask me to bet on if I were to give you odds of the Packers winning out, I'd say right now, oh God, I'd probably have to give you like plus 900. I don't think that's crazy. I really don't. It'd have to be around plus 900 if you're talking about the Packers being able to win out. When you consider the fact that, they are playing better football now, and the offense is definitely playing better. I think the key might actually be this Dolphins game next week. Do we have let me see if I can pull up the standings here. I'm just trying to think if the Vikings, what will the Vikings do at 11-3? The Vikings they're not locked in as the second seed. See, so the Vikings are still probably going to need that game. So it's not as if the Vikings can just mail it in. I'm trying to find a scenario where, the Green Bay, the game against the Vikings is at home, and I think the Vikings are frauds. The key is really that game next week in Miami. I think the key for Green Bay is this game in Miami next week, because I think they can beat the Vikings. I think the Vikings are frauds. I've said it all season long, and I'll continue to say it. I don't care what their record says. Oh, they came back from 33-0 down against the Colts. That means they got down 33-0 against the Colts, you knuckleheads. And I'm sorry. I can't take you seriously if you get down 33-0 at home against the Colts. I can't do it. I'm sorry. Good lordy. Do we have Paul Allen's call? I'm gonna pull an audible here. The call from Paul Allen, one of the great play-by-play guys in all of sports, who I just love. Here is Paul Allen's call of the crazy win for the Vikings after being down 33-0. Let's see here. See if I can find this for you guys, because it's really worth every single second of it. Paul Allen, Vikings Radio Network. All right, here it is. Paul Allen's call of the Vikings game winner after trailing 33-0 in overtime. Caleb Joseph, 40-yard field goal attempt. Take it away, Paul.
Joseph, right-footed kick. It is good! And the Minnesota Vikings have completed the greatest comeback in the history of the National Football League.
And you know what? Normally somebody says the greatest of anything, and you go, oh, that's hyperbole. Oh, that's somebody getting too excited. Well, actually, it's not. In this case, it really is the greatest comeback of all time. But if we're going play-by-play, should I do it? Should I do it, Austin? If we're doing play-by-play and crazy endings and crazy play-by-play calls, I think you know where I'm going with this one, too. Don't we have to give you the Raiders game? How do we not have the Jason Horowitz call of this? I only have the ESPN Radio Mark Kestisher call, and I like Kesty, but that's disappointing. I wanted to hear my boy, my man Jason Horowitz, do the call for the Raiders winner. I'll have to find that one. I'll tell you what. I'll find that one during the timeout here. 1-800-224-2004, 800-224-2004. Hey, I got a Twitter poll up on my Twitter feed at The Back Page, and on Twitter at The Back Page. And our Twitter question, and you guys can weigh in on the phones as well, at 800-224-2004. Let's make it a question here for the next segment. 800-224-2004. Biggest headline from Week 15. Is it the Patriots fumbleception? Yep, we came up with that one. The Vikings comeback, the Lions playoff push or KC winning the AFC West? Which is the biggest story of Week 15 in the NFL? Patriots fumbleception, the Vikings comeback, Lions playoff push, or KC winning the AFC West? 800-224-2004. Lots more to do on the cash-in at SportsMap Radio.
Mac Jones hands it off on a draw to Ramondre Stevenson, breaks out of a tackle at the 50.
All right, I got it. I didn't hear the Patriots call. I only heard the Raiders call of it. Just losing his mind. That's great. Oh, God, it's great. It's so awesome. Because their analyst on those on those Patriots broadcasts drives me nuts. Oh, I've got the Patriots call. I got it. We need to get that. That promo needs to be taken out of rotation.
Mac Jones hands it off on a draw to Ramondre Stevenson, breaks out of a tackle at the 50, has the 45, breaks away from another tackle, pitches it backwards, and now...
All right, let's have some fun at the Patriots' expense here. We've got 13 minutes until my conversation with Kurt Heelan and Pro Basketball Talk at NBCSports.com. So Kurt Heelan drops by 13 minutes from now to talk some NBA with us. Let's have some fun at the Patriots' expense, shall we? Oh, man, it never gets old. All right. So everybody knows what happened yesterday, and you probably saw it on TV, but it's unlikely that you heard the actual radio call of both the Raiders and the Patriots on this final play in the fourth quarter yesterday with the Raiders and Patriots tied at 24 in Las Vegas. The Patriots are basically just running out the clock. They play it conservative, handoff on a third down play with literally no time left. On their own 44-yard line. We'll give you both calls. First, Jason Horowitz, our good friend, with the call on the Raiders Radio Network, Compass Media Networks, Listen to the exhilaration and just downright giddiness of Jason Horowitz on this call.
Mac Jones hands it off on a draw to Ramondre Stevenson, breaks out of a tackle at the 50, has the 45, breaks away from another tackle, pitches it backwards, and now Jacoby Myers spinning around. He throws it to Chandler Jones in midfield, and a stiff arm. Chandler Jones racing towards the end zone. He scores! Oh my goodness! Oh my goodness!
I can't believe what I just saw.
Again!
I can't believe what I just saw. This is unbelievable. Wow.
On the first night of Hanukkah, it's a miracle in Las Vegas.
On the first night of Hanukkah. Oh my goodness, it was so great. I mean, did you hear how many times his voice cracked during that call? Austin, our producer, did you hear how many times his voice cracked on that call? It cracked a lot. Exactly. Oh, it was great. And I've known Jason for a number of years, so I'm happy for him that he gets to have that. He's had a few great end of game calls because the Raiders have had like 3 walk-off wins in their last 4 games, I think. So it's this crazy thing going on with this team. So from the thrill of victory, I think of that old ABC Wide World of Sports, from the thrill of victory to the agony of defeat. Oh, here's what it sounded like on Patriots radio.
Mac Hollins out on defense. He's all the way back. Stevenson.
Oh, no, this isn't. Now, see, this is actually the TV call from Kenny Albert. All right, so we'll give you the TV call from Kenny Albert. Take a listen.
Mac Hollins out on defense. He's all the way back. Stevenson is inside the 30, flips it back. Stanford band nowhere in sight. It's picked off. Oh no! Unbelievable! Oh wow! Incredible! Chandler Jones takes it in and wins the game for the Raiders. Mac Hollins.
Kenny Albert, who's been a guest on this show. We love Kenny. Had the call on Fox Sports yesterday for the finale of that game. Just insane. Absolutely insane. Oh, we've got here it is. So this is what it sounded like on the Patriots radio network. And again, I probably can't get enough of this, but here we go.
On a 3rd and 10, 3 seconds left. Jones will give it to Stevenson. He started right. He runs it up the middle. Hit by Chandler. Jones slips the head across the 45 with a stiff arm. Off the tackle at the 40. He lost the football. And Jacoby Myers picks it up. He circles back and he throws it across the field. Oh, my God. It's picked up by Chandler Jones. He breaks away to the 30. He runs to the 20. He runs to the 10. He runs to the end zone. Unreal. Touchdown. Raiders. This might be one of the dumbest teams I've ever seen. And a victory for Las Vegas.
That might be one of the dumbest things I've ever seen. It's just great. You can't make it up, man. I have to say, the play-by-play guy did a good job. A lot of play-by-play guys for home teams in that situation would just be totally dejected. I expect the analyst to be dejected. But, that was great. It was so much fun. Crazy weekend in the NFL, man. There's just no getting around it. 1-800-224-2004, 800-224-2004 from anywhere in America. You could always tweet at the show as well, at the back page. Again, on Twitter, at the back page. The quality wasn't the greatest on the Patriots call, but it's actually a hard call to find. You would think usually that stuff is kind of easy the day after a game, but can't find a lot of the Patriots call. That might be on purpose. They may not have wanted to really post it anywhere. So if you didn't get it live, then that's an issue. There was also an interesting play in that game. I don't remember who the touchdown pass was to, but there was a Raider touchdown in that game against the Patriots that was ruled a touchdown on the field. And they went and reviewed it, and it looked like the Raiders receiver's foot was on the sideline and was out of bounds. And everybody who looked at it on TV said they had a good aerial shot in which it looked like the Raiders receivers, the toes of his foot was out of bounds. And it was, the ruling on the field was upheld and was called a touchdown. And I have to admit, I was kind of surprised. That was one where it felt like review should have overturned it, and it didn't. So, tough way to lose if you're the Patriots. And now, they've basically taken destiny and taken it out of their own hands. Is this a better version? Let me see. It might have a better version of that Patriots call. Let's see. Nah, it's the same one. So that's what you got. Patriots dropped to 7-7 on the year. By the way, before we throw it to my conversation with Kurt Heelan from Pro Basketball Talk at NBCSports.com, I just want to say this. They're not making the playoffs barring something incredibly unforeseen, because they're 6-8 and dead last in the AFC North, and tiebreakers and all that stuff aren't going to help them. But the Pittsburgh Steelers being 6-8 this year is nothing short of a miracle with what Mike Tomlin has had to deal with this team. Injuries, Kenny Pickett, Mitchell Trubisky, and just not a lot to work with at the quarterback position. The fact that he has this team at 6-8 with 3 to play, and quite honestly, 3 games that I think they'll be in all 3 of them. The Raiders play a ton of close games, so that game will be close. And that game's in Pittsburgh. Then at the Ravens, who have been inconsistent at best, and then home for the Browns. So, to say the least, Mike Tomlin has gotten just about every ounce of ability out of this Steelers team this year. A lot of people like to bang on Mike Tomlin. I don't know why when the guys won multiple Super Bowls. But what he's done this year with a Steelers team that, plays in a very competitive, if not a good division, but a competitive division, with 2 teams that are likely to make the playoffs out of that division, I give him a lot of credit for having the Steelers at 6-8 and still playing meaningful football here in the final 3 weeks of the season. All right, let's switch gears. We'll chat with Kurt Heelan of Pro Basketball Talk at NBCSports.com. Who would have thought the New York Knicks would have the longest winning streak in the NBA right now? They do, if you didn't know. They play the Warriors on Tuesday. And speaking of the Warriors, are they at risk of not even making the playoffs this year? We'll talk about it next on The Cash In. It's SportsMap Radio. We roll along on this Monday edition of the show. Take a little detour from all the NFL talk to talk about one of my favorite things to talk about, and that is the NBA. Well, when I'm not talking about We roll along on this Monday edition of the show. Take a little detour from all the NFL talk to talk about one of my favorite things to talk about, and that is the NBA. Well, when I'm not talking about the World Cup, of course, or the NHL. I'm kidding. Good to catch up with our good friend Kurt Heelan, Pro Basketball Talk at NBCSports.com. A friend of the program, just a friend in life. He joins us on the show tonight. So, let's call a spade here. We kind of, when I asked you about the Knicks before the season started, you sort of laughed at the idea of this, being a playoff team and what could they do. And here they are, the hottest team in the NBA. I'll be damned, because they looked like basically a 500 team through the first 20 games of the season. And now all of a sudden they've seemingly put it all together. What's going on?
They've started to play defense. They played really good defense, and they were, by the way, horrible at it early on, but I don't know. Tom Thibodeau's good at coaching defense. His teams tend to get better at it over the course of a season. Not in Minnesota, but like everywhere else. And I think that's just started to happen here. They've started to play much better on that end of the floor. And there's also the personnel moves, which obviously got a lot of play because, look, Derrick Rose out of the rotation. They're trying to trade. At some point, they're going to have to play Evan Fournier if they want to trade him. Like, you're going to have to showcase him a little. But like the guys the front office brought in as free agents are kind of out of the picture, and they're getting replaced by the guys they drafted. Quentin Grimes is getting time. Right. Those are the guys stepping up and making plays. Quentin Grimes and Jalen Brunson form a nice backcourt, like a nice, solid, quality backcourt. And they've just kind of played up to that level. They've been good in a conference where, outside of Boston, Milwaukee, nobody's really run away, right? Like it's a little tight. You can kind of move up and down in there outside of those two, and they've played really well lately. Like you said, now as of this morning, they are top 6. Good for them.
Everybody. If you look at the top 6 in that conference outside of Boston that just lost 2 games in a row to Orlando, who's my sort of little pet team that I love to watch because they're so young and so athletic, and a bowl just I go wild every time I get to watch a bowl highlight. But you look at the top 6 in the East right now. Bucks have won their last 2. Cleveland's won their last 4. The Nets have won 6 in a row, 9 of their last 10. The 76ers have won 5 in a row. I mean, the top of that conference right now is really playing well.
They've started to put it together, and I think that how well Boston and Milwaukee played early on, and continue to. I mean, like I said, Boston's had a couple losses, but I don't think we're worried about them. Put some pressure on teams to start getting better, but in the case of Brooklyn, they hit a soft spot in the schedule, but they also got healthy. They got Kyrie back from his suspension. They got Joe Harris kind of healthy and playing. Nick Claxton's been solid for them. Like everybody kind of got right. It's sort of that way with figuring out what they wanted to do with the rotations in New York. Philadelphia's gotten healthy, although they don't have Maxey back, but they were without 2/3 of their big 3 for a while. Everything's starting to come together, and the conference looks. The conference looks deeper and tougher in the top 6 certainly than out west, where nobody's running away with anything.
No, they certainly are not. Talking with Kurt Heelan, Pro Basketball Talk at NBCSports.com. And I know they're not making the playoffs. I guess theoretically they're only 3 games out of a spot in the play-in. But Orlando's starting to play a little bit better right now. That team seems like it is starting to mesh a little bit, doesn't it?
It does. It'll be interesting to see what they do at the trade deadline with some of their veterans. This might be one of those situations where they're not as eager to win as suddenly some of those players. Banchero can play. Franz Wagner can play, man. Like you said, Bol's been. Look, you can't. You're not sliding him into the starting lineup and expecting him to just shut down Giannis, but guy can make some plays, right? Like he is, especially against the second unit. He's a lot of fun. they're kind of entertaining. And I was at the Lakers-Wizards game where the Lakers won, beat the Wizards in that was not the prettiest basketball game we've ever seen.
Crazy ending to that game.
Yeah. The Wizards' crunch time defense gave up, like, the last two Laker buckets were uncontested dunks, which is, kind of what you want to do right down the court. But they, it was a close game, and I think Darvin Ham made a good point, which is even the bad teams in the league have generally gotten a little smarter than maybe they were, and they're playing their young guys, and there's a little more depth of talent in the league. And suddenly, like, you don't get a night off against Orlando anymore, because if you do, Banchero and Wagner and Cole Anthony and whoever else is hot that night will just put up numbers. And if you think you're just going to coast against Houston, Jalen Green and Martin are going to go out and put up numbers. Like, there's talent everywhere, and you just can't take a night off in the NBA the way I think you used to. You can still get some wins resting guys, but it's not as easy as it was. There's not, like, you can't just look down the schedule and go, "Oh, we got that one."
I'm glad you mentioned the nights off thing, because somebody might have been Alan Hahn. I can't remember. It was one of these basketball guys that mentioned this the other night. The Knicks, when it comes to their big three, Randall, Brunson, RJ Barrett, not one game have those guys sat out for rest. Not one. And when you look around a league where guys are sitting there, players and, can't play people on the back end of back-to-backs and all of that stuff is great. The Knicks, who have won 7 in a row and are starting to sort of excel here, are an example of why maybe you don't do that.
And also, look, it's one thing if you're thinking, and the Lakers ran the JV team out tonight and they're getting crushed. If you're right, you might want to give almost 38-year-old LeBron James the second night of a back-to-back off. Like, there's sometimes there's spots for it. Guys coming off injuries, I get it. But I think that, two things. A, like you said, the teams that don't, the teams that come out and like the Knicks, and hey, we're bringing everybody, and we're going to play hard every night, and we're just not going to be easy to play against. You pick up some wins. The other part of this, and I think it's the bigger concern for the league long term, is regular season. What you're selling isn't that when everybody's resting, and you're like, hey man, because we got to have Kawhi Leonard right for the playoffs, and we'll worry about the rest of it later. What you're telling your fans is, and what you're telling the fans around the league is, regular season doesn't matter.
No premium on the Kurt. I went nuts. I went nuts on it last week, and I'm not normally this guy that will spend a segment on this sort of thing, but my God, you had the Clippers last week against the Suns, and you've got the Clippers with no Paul George, no Kawhi Leonard, and no chance of competing against the Suns at home. I don't know how much ticket prices are for the Clippers versus the Lakers, but I'm sure it's not cheap. And fans are paying to watch this. It's just not a sustainable model if you're this league. You cannot keep doing this.
And you get it a lot on the road too. The league weirdly would prefer you rest your guys at home, but hey man, the Miami Heat are coming into town. I'm not, unless I'm from Miami, I'm not necessarily paying to see the Heat, but you know what? I like to see Jimmy Butler play. I like to see Bam Adebayo play. Well, Bam plays pretty regularly, but Jimmy's one of those guys who gets a lot of nights off. And I I've seen the analytics. I've seen the rest. If the league has to find a way to deal with this, well, I'm just not sure what the answer is.
Shorten the season or lengthen the season and allow more days off in between games so you don't have all these back-to-backs, but you've got to do something.
I ultimately, shortening the season is, I think, the answer. And you're going to have to find a way. And look, it's a money thing. It's a gate thing. But I think as the league grows internationally, it becomes hard to be, hey, man, this is look, those weird 12 o'clock New York Knicks starts or East Coast starts, the Nets get some other teams occasionally do, but the Knicks get a bunch of them. That's for Europe, man. Those weird starts are to get you into other markets with primetime games, right? Like, and if guys are resting, and I don't mean like J.R. Smith, I was out too late resting. I mean, like, genuinely resting. Like, if you're not helping that market either, at some point, look, you're never going to be the NFL or college football, or just football in general, where scarcity wins, right? Like every game matters because there's so few of them that if the Dolphins lose to the Bills, it changes the standings,
Sure.
right? You're not going to get there. You're not going to go below like 60. But I think if you put together 60 that's a better product. I don't know that you lose that much money over the course of the regular season, and then everybody tunes into the playoffs anyway, and that's where your TV partners are really making their money. So we'll see. I get what they're trying to. I get this. I get it. I get it's going to be a rough transition, but at some point they're going to have to do something because this is just. I'm with you. Like I've seen the analytics. I get it. I understand why they're doing it. It's just not a good product night to night when. Again, there's injuries like the Lakers tonight. Yeah, there's injuries, but they're also resting Russ and LeBron on the second night of a back-to-back because they just kind of looked at this and said, "Well, Phoenix is good. We're not going to win that game. Let's get the win at home. We're second night of a back-to-back against a good team. Let's get the win at home. Whatever happens in the second game happens." And that happens a lot.
All right, let's talk about the Warriors. Kurt Heelan, Pro Basketball Talk at NBCSports.com. Am I being, I'm not hyperventilating here if I'm a Warriors fan, but they're 15-16. They're at least going to be without Stephen Curry for a couple more weeks at the least. In the middle of a tough, long road trip, they're at the Knicks on Tuesday. Are we talking about a scenario here where, and they weren't playing great when they were all healthy on the floor anyway, no Wiggins. Are we talking about a scenario right now where the Warriors might miss the playoffs altogether?
No, I don't. They will get it together more than that before then. They're capable of it. There's a combination. Now the Curry injury doesn't help, but there has been, and they struggled early when the season, just kind of getting the rotation settled. James Wiseman and Moses Moody didn't step up like they hoped. Even Kuminga, I think they were hoping for a bigger role. He's kind of settled into one, but it's not necessarily the role they'd hoped. It took them a while to find their rotations. Now they've got the injuries. I think they'll be fine. And they're still going to be one of the favorites going into the playoffs. But if you go in as, let's say they put it together and they get up to the 4, 5, 6 seed even, they make the playoffs, you've just made your road tougher. Like you have made it more difficult on yourself to fight through than it needed to be. And going on the second year of back-to-back with an old, you went all the way into June with an older team, that can be an issue. Like it absolutely can be. And you don't want to make this more difficult on yourself than you already have. And they've done that. Memphis is probably going to be home for a lot of the playoffs. That's a good young team. And if you're a little bit tired, Memphis gave them a lot of trouble last year. If you talk to Grizzlies people,
if John Morant plays that last game, they probably win the series.
They thought even maybe more than Boston, that was their toughest matchup. Honestly, just between you and me, since we're just talking here, if I had to pick today, I would probably pick Memphis to come out of the West. Like, I just think they're playing better than everybody. By the way, they get their second best player back soon. They're just, I think, in a better place right now. And the Warriors are treating the regular season like champions tend to, but I have a feeling it's going to come back to bite them.
I think the Western Conference playoffs are going to be so much fun. I love New Orleans. If Memphis is your team, I'm watching New Orleans because that's a team that's really starting to put it together, and they're a lot of fun to watch. I'm out of time as always. Kurt Heelan, Pro Basketball Talk at NBCSports.com. Always good to catch up with you, my friend. Have a great week. We'll do it again soon.
You have a great holiday. Take care of yourself.
Same to you, my friend. We'll come back and wrap up the hour next. Thank you for being a part of the show tonight. I appreciate it. Couple of quick hitters before we leave you. Argentina declaring a national holiday for a World Cup celebration. Congratulations, Argentina. You beat France in penalty kicks. It's like deciding the Stanley Cup with a shootout. It's just stupid. Sorry. Greatest sport in the world, and you decide your largest event held every 4 years by penalty kicks. I'm sorry. I just cannot take you seriously. We mentioned it. Jalen Hurts of the Eagles, a sprained shoulder. Status for this week against the Cowboys is unknown. So we'll see what happens there. Former Notre Dame quarterback Drew Pine transferring to Arizona State. So he entered the transfer portal, and he was not there long. So we'll see what happens with Drew Pine as he goes to Arizona State to try to establish himself. Arizona State's busy, man. It's the 26th new recruit or transfer brought in since they got rid of Herm Edwards and brought in a new head coach. So, Kenny Dillingham coaching Arizona State now. That's going to do it for us tonight. Thank you to Kurt Heelan for joining us on the show. Thank you, Austin Rodriguez, for producing and engineering it. I'm Jason Page. We'll catch you back here on Tuesday for the Cash In on SportsMap Radio. Bye! So I like the Heelan interview. And I mean, I really liked the whole, all three segments of that second hour. I really liked. So just make it a long podcast. It's fine. The first two segments, I want the first two segments of hour one and the interview with Heelan, and then the three segments of hour two. All right. Thank you. I appreciate it. I'll talk to you tomorrow, right? Oh, John's in tomorrow? Okay. So I'll talk to you Wednesday or Thursday? Okay. Have a good night. Thank you. Bye. All right. That does it for us on the video side as well. Thanks for tuning in tonight. For those of you that you did. We are back on Tuesday, 10 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Pacific for the Cash In on SportsMap Radio. Thank you for watching and being a part of it. I'll talk to y'all later. Have a great night.